Inside a sprawling suburban mansion, lit by dim, flickering outdoor lights, lay the lifeless body of a man in his mid-40s. Blood pooled beneath him on the polished hardwood floor of the home office, a stark contrast to the room's otherwise pristine decor. The victim, identified as Daniel Harper, was a well-known entrepreneur and co-owner of a thriving tech firm. His success had made him a respected figure in the business world, but the violent circumstances of his death hinted at secrets lurking beneath the surface of his seemingly perfect life. Detectives quickly noted signs of a struggle: papers strewn across the desk, a broken lamp, and a shattered photo frame containing a picture of Daniel with his business partner, Richard Lawson. It was Richard who had placed the 911 call, his voice trembling as he reported discovering the grisly scene. However, as investigators delved into the case, it became clear that Richard wasn't the only person close to Daniel with secrets to hide. Daniel's wife, Victoria Harper, was poised and composed during questioning, but inconsistencies in her story began to emerge. What started as an apparent burglary gone wrong soon unraveled into a tangled web of obsession, betrayal, and murder. The truth behind Daniel's death would send shockwaves through his family, his business, and the entire community. How could a life built on success and partnership end in such brutal violence? To find the answer, investigators would need to uncover the hidden obsession that had turned this family's world upside down. Sterling Heights was a picture of prosperity, a suburban enclave where luxury cars lined the driveways of sprawling homes, and families enjoyed the quiet comfort of a safe, affluent community. It was here, on a tree-lined cul-de-sac, that the Harper family had built their life. Their home, a two-story modern masterpiece with expansive glass windows and perfectly manicured lawns, reflected the image of success that Daniel and Victoria Harper had cultivated. Daniel Harper, 46, was a self-made entrepreneur and the co-founder of Harper Lawson Innovations, a tech firm known for its groundbreaking software solutions. Charismatic and driven, Daniel was a natural leader who commanded respect in both the boardroom and his personal life. To his colleagues and friends, he was a man who seemed to have it all: a thriving business, a loving wife, and a secure place in the community. Victoria Harper, 42, was the epitome of elegance and grace. A former marketing executive who had stepped back from her career to support Daniel's ambitions, she was known for hosting lavish gatherings and maintaining the perfect household. To outsiders, she appeared devoted to her husband, her poised demeanor a constant compliment to Daniel's outgoing nature. Rounding out their world was Richard Lawson, Daniel's business partner and closest confidant. At 48, Richard was the steady counterbalance to Daniel's dynamic energy. Together, they had grown Harper Lawson Innovations from a small startup into a multi-million-dollar enterprise. Their partnership was the foundation of their professional success and a bond that many believed was unshakable. But beneath the surface of this idyllic life, cracks were beginning to show. Daniel's work often kept him late at the office, and Victoria, once the center of his attention, now seemed relegated to the periphery of his life. Friends noticed subtle shifts: a colder tone in conversations, fewer shared moments between the couple. At the same time, Richard's frequent presence in their lives began to raise quiet speculation. The Harpers' seemingly perfect marriage masked a growing distance, and, as it turned out, Victoria's feelings had started to shift in a way that would have devastating consequences. It was against this backdrop of affluence and hidden tensions that the fatal events unfolded, turning a quiet Sterling Heights mansion into the scene of a chilling crime. On the evening of December 14th, the calm of Sterling Heights was shattered by a 911 call placed at 9:42 p.m. The voice on the line was that of Richard Lawson, his words frantic and barely coherent as he reported finding his business partner, Daniel Harper, lying lifeless in the Harper home office. Emergency responders arrived within minutes, but it was already too late. Daniel had suffered a fatal stab wound to the chest. The weapon, a kitchen knife, left discarded nearby. The scene inside the house painted a picture of chaos. The office, normally immaculate, was in complete disarray. A broken lamp lay on the floor, shards of glass scattered near Daniel's body. Papers were strewn across the desk and floor, and the overturned chair suggested a struggle had taken place. On the desk was an untouched glass of scotch, its placement eerily deliberate amidst the disorder. Investigators noted the absence of forced entry, a critical detail that immediately narrowed the list of suspects. Victoria Hoy Harper was the first to be questioned. She claimed she had been out for an evening walk when the incident occurred, returning home to find Richard already there and her husband dead. Dressed impeccably, her demeanor was calm yet subdued, though detectives couldn't ignore the subtle tension in her tone. Her story, while plausible, left gaps that would later become significant. Richard, visibly shaken, described coming to the house for a late-night meeting with Daniel to discuss a business proposal. Upon entering, he said he found the office door slightly ajar and saw Daniel on the floor. He denied hearing or seeing anything unusual before discovering the body. While his distress appeared genuine, his close relationship with both Daniel and Victoria made his presence at the scene difficult to ignore. The initial theory leaned toward a burglary gone wrong. However, several inconsistencies quickly emerged. There were no signs of a break-in, and nothing of value appeared to be missing from the home. Daniel's wallet and watch remained on the desk, untouched. This, coupled with the intimate nature of the attack, a single stab wound delivered with precision, suggested a personal motive. As investigators processed the crime scene, they uncovered a piece of evidence that raised more questions than answers. An envelope addressed to Richard Lawson, found on the desk. Inside was a handwritten letter from Daniel, its contents cryptic but clearly intended for Richard's eyes alone. The letter referenced betrayal and an unbearable truth, though it stopped short of naming specifics. Its presence cast a shadow over Richard's involvement, sparking immediate suspicion. Forensics revealed that the knife used in the attack had no discernible fingerprints, suggesting it had been wiped clean. Blood spatter patterns indicated a struggle, but not an extended one, implying the attacker had acted with speed and purpose. Further examination of Daniel's body revealed bruising on his wrists, likely from being restrained, adding another layer of complexity to the crime. Neighbors provided little insight, with none reporting hearing unusual noises from the house that evening. However, one neighbor did mention seeing Victoria leave the house alone around 8:30 p.m. and return shortly before emergency responders arrived, a timeline that would later be scrutinized. As the pieces of the puzzle began to come together, the investigation shifted focus. The absence of forced entry, the targeted nature of the attack, and the enigmatic letter pointed to someone close to Daniel. Both Victoria and Richard, by virtue of their proximity to the victim and their presence at the scene, found themselves under the microscope. While the initial hours of the investigation were filled with uncertainty, one thing became clear: this was not a random act of violence. The events of that night had been set in motion long before the fatal confrontation, driven by motives yet to be uncovered. Detectives were left with one pressing question: what hidden truths had led to the murder of Daniel Harper? The answer, they would soon discover, was more shocking than anyone could have anticipated. The investigation into Daniel Harper's murder began with a meticulous analysis of the crime scene. Detectives, led by seasoned investigator Detective Angela Monroe, combed through every detail, determined to unravel the truth behind the chaotic and violent events of that December night. From the outset, the absence of forced entry and the targeted nature of the attack suggested that the killer was someone close to the victim. The initial focus was on Victoria Harper and Richard Lawson, the two people present in the house that evening. Victoria's calm yet rehearsed demeanor during questioning raised immediate red flags. Her alibi, claiming she had been out for a walk during the time of the murder, was shaky at best. Surveillance footage from a nearby intersection confirmed her presence outside the house, but inconsistencies in her timeline began to emerge. Witness statements placed her leaving the house earlier than she had claimed and returning in a state of visible distress. Detective Monroe's team turned to the letter found on Daniel's desk, addressed to Richard Lawson. Handwriting analysis confirmed it was written by Daniel, and its contents hinted at deep personal and professional tensions. Phrases like, "I can't ignore this betrayal any longer," and "We'll settle this tonight," suggested an imminent confrontation. The letter's cryptic tone painted a picture of unresolved conflict, but without further context, its implications were still unclear. Forensics provided another layer of insight. The knife used in the murder, a standard kitchen knife from the Harper home, had been wiped clean of fingerprints, a deliberate act that pointed to premeditation. Blood spatter analysis indicated a brief but intense struggle, corroborating the theory that the attack was swift and calculated. Bruising on Daniel's wrists suggested he had been restrained, adding a chilling dimension to the crime. Investigators also uncovered another troubling piece of evidence: a second set of footprints in the house, distinct from those of Victoria and Richard. These prints, made with what appeared to be high-end men's dress shoes, led from the office to the kitchen and then abruptly stopped. This discovery cast doubt on the idea that only two people were present during the critical moments. Meanwhile, Richard Lawson's account of the evening came under intense scrutiny. He insisted that his visit to the Harper home was purely for business, yet phone records revealed heated exchanges between him and Daniel in the days leading up to the murder. Text messages included phrases such as, "This ends now," and "I won't let you ruin everything." The tone suggested a relationship that had soured, but the exact nature of their dispute remained unclear. As detectives dug deeper, they unearthed another layer of intrigue: a financial discrepancy within Harper Lawson Innovations. Recent audits revealed significant sums of money unaccounted for, with transactions linked to a shell company connected to Richard. While Richard denied any wrongdoing, the discovery provided a possible motive for tension between him and Daniel. Victoria's connection to the crime grew more complicated with the discovery of her private email account. Emails between her and Richard revealed an intimate relationship that predated the murder. Though the tone of the email suggested the relationship had cooled, one message from Richard stood out: "We can't keep doing this. He'll find out, and it won't end well." This revelation cast both Victoria and Richard in a new light, suggesting their partnership may have been more than just professional. The investigation took another shocking turn when a neighbor came forward with an account of seeing an unidentified man leaving the Harper residence shortly before the police arrived. The description was vague, but it matched neither Richard nor Daniel, adding a new layer of complexity to the case. Surveillance footage from the neighborhood was reviewed, and while it failed to capture a clear image of the individual, it confirmed movement outside the house during the critical time frame. Piece by piece, the case against Victoria and Richard began to solidify. Motives of betrayal, financial greed, and a forbidden relationship intertwined to form a tangled web of deceit. While Victoria's alibi faltered, Richard's evasive responses and the financial irregularities painted him as someone with much to hide. Yet, the possibility of a third party's involvement lingered, complicating the narrative. Detective Monroe and her team continued to piece together the evidence, aware that the truth lay buried beneath layers of lies and calculated actions. The investigation had begun as a search for a single killer, but it was becoming clear that the story of Daniel Harper's murder involved more players and more secrets than anyone had anticipated. As the investigation progressed, the case took a sharp and unexpected turn with the discovery of new evidence that completely shifted the narrative. What appeared to be a straightforward crime of passion began to unravel into a more sinister and calculated scheme. Detectives uncovered an anonymous tip that led them to a rented storage unit in a neighboring town. Inside, they found incriminating items that included a burner phone, several documents tied to Harper Lawson Innovations, and a handwritten journal belonging to Victoria Harper. The journal entries revealed a disturbing obsession not just with Richard Lawson, but with control over her husband's business empire. Victoria had detailed plans to manipulate both Daniel and Richard to secure her own financial freedom. One entry stood out: "He trusts me too much. Once he's out of the way, I'll have everything I need." This chilling statement left little doubt about her intentions, marking her as more than just a grieving widow or a suspect caught in a web of deceit. Further examination of the burner phone revealed a series of calls made to an unidentified number. With the help of a phone company's records, detectives traced the number to a private investigator hired by Victoria weeks before the murder. The investigator's notes, which were later obtained through a warrant, detailed surveillance of Daniel's movements and conversations, as well as cryptic instructions from Victoria to find something she could use against him. This suggested a level of premeditation far beyond what investigators initially suspected. The financial discrepancies within Harper Lawson Innovations took center stage once again. Digging deeper, auditors discovered that the shell company siphoning funds was not connected directly to Richard Lawson as originally thought, but to an offshore account tied to Victoria. This revelation changed everything, casting her in the role of a mastermind, orchestrating the entire scheme to secure both her financial independence and eliminate her husband as an obstacle. The most shocking twist came when detectives re-examined the mysterious footprints found at the crime scene. The pattern of the soles matched a pair of custom-made Italian leather shoes found in Victoria's closet. She had initially claimed they belonged to Daniel, but further testing confirmed traces of her DNA on the shoes, proving she had worn them. This new evidence placed Victoria at the scene during the time of the murder, contradicting her alibi and dismantling her claims of innocence. Meanwhile, Richard Lawson, who had long been under suspicion, provided detectives with a bombshell confession of his own. He admitted to the affair with Victoria, but denied any role in the murder. Instead, he claimed Victoria had manipulated him into believing they could build a life together if Daniel was out of the picture. He described receiving the letter from Daniel on the day of the murder, accusing him of betrayal and demanding an end to both their business partnership and his personal relationship with Victoria. Fearing the confrontation, Richard had arrived at the house that night, only to find Daniel already dead. In a desperate attempt to clear his name, Richard handed over an audio recording of a conversation he had secretly recorded with Victoria weeks before the murder. In the recording, Victoria could be heard calmly discussing ways to handle Daniel's interference, her tone devoid of emotion. She stopped short of explicitly mentioning violence, but her calculated words left little doubt about her intentions. The investigation took its final and most startling turn when forensics tied the knife used in the murder to fingerprints that had been faintly preserved despite Victoria's attempts to clean it. Combined with the mounting evidence of her journal, financial schemes, and manipulation of Richard, the case against her became undeniable. Victoria Harper, once seen as a poised and grieving widow, was now revealed to be the architect of a cold and calculated plan. Her obsession with control, both over her husband's business and her forbidden relationship with Richard, had driven her to orchestrate a brutal murder. What began as a crime of passion had transformed into a chilling tale of premeditation, deceit, and betrayal. The revelations left investigators stunned and the community in shock. The polished image Victoria had maintained for years was shattered, exposing the dangerous lengths she had gone to in pursuit of her ambitions. The trial that followed promised to bring the full weight of justice to bear on the woman who had fooled everyone, including those closest to her. The trial of Victoria Harper captured the attention of Sterling Heights and beyond, transforming what had once been a private tragedy into a public spectacle. The courtroom, packed with reporters, spectators, and grieving family members, became the stage for a legal battle that promised to expose every dark corner of the Harper household. Prosecutors wasted no time painting Victoria as the architect of a meticulously planned murder. They opened with the journal entries found in her storage unit, presenting them as written proof of her intentions. "He trusts me too much," the prosecutor quoted, holding up a page for the jury to see. The entry was followed by others that outlined Victoria's growing resentment toward Daniel and her belief that his control over the family business and finances was a barrier she needed to eliminate. The financial evidence was another key pillar of the prosecution's case. A forensic accountant testified that funds embezzled from Harper Lawson Innovations were funneled into an offshore account under Victoria's control. The shell company that had initially pointed to Richard Lawson was proven to be a diversion, part of Victoria's attempt to shift suspicion away from herself. The prosecutor argued that this financial deception not only showed motive, but also highlighted her cunning and calculated nature. Next, the prosecution presented the burner phone and the private investigator's notes. The investigator took the stand and described how Victoria had hired him to gather information on Daniel, claiming she was preparing for a divorce. However, his surveillance notes revealed no evidence of infidelity or misconduct on Daniel's part. Instead, they painted a picture of a man focused on his business, unaware of the storm brewing around him. The most damning piece of evidence was the audio recording provided by Richard Lawson. In the chilling recording, Victoria's voice was calm and deliberate as she discussed eliminating obstacles and ensuring her plans weren't disrupted. While she stopped short of explicitly mentioning murder, the prosecutor argued that her language left no doubt about her intent. The recording was played in the courtroom, its eerie tone silencing even the most skeptical jurors. Victoria's defense team faced an uphill battle. Their strategy hinged on portraying her as a victim of circumstance, someone who had been pushed to her breaking point by years of emotional neglect and manipulation by both Daniel and Richard. They argued that her journal entries were mere venting, not plans of action, and that her financial dealings, while questionable, did not directly tie her to the murder. In her testimony, Victoria maintained her innocence. She described her relationship with Daniel as strained, but insisted she had no reason to harm him. She admitted to the affair with Richard, but claimed it was a brief lapse in judgment, one she regretted deeply. When confronted with the journal entries, she argued they were taken out of context, asserting they were expressions of frustration, not premeditated intent. Her calm demeanor on the stand, however, came across as cold and unconvincing to many in the courtroom. Richard Lawson also took the stand, offering a detailed account of his relationship with Victoria and his presence at the scene. While he admitted to poor judgment and complicity in the affair, he vehemently denied any involvement in the murder. His testimony placed the focus squarely back on Victoria, portraying her as manipulative and willing to destroy anyone who stood in her way. The jury deliberated for 3 days before reaching a verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. The conviction carried a life sentence without the possibility of parole, a decision that brought a measure of closure to Daniel Harper's family, but left the community grappling with the dark truths that had surfaced during the trial. As the sentence was read, Victoria showed little emotion, maintaining the stoic composure that had defined her throughout the proceedings. The case was a grim reminder of how ambition, obsession, and betrayal could lead to devastating consequences. For Richard Lawson, the trial marked the end of his professional and personal life as he knew it. Though cleared of any direct involvement in the murder, his reputation was irreparably damaged. Harper Lawson Innovations dissolved in the wake of the scandal, leaving employees and stakeholders scrambling to recover from the fallout. The trial's conclusion left a deep impact on Sterling Heights, a community that had long prided itself on its image of affluence and stability. The Harper case became a cautionary tale, a stark reminder that even the most polished facades could hide dangerous secrets. For those closest to the case, it was a sobering testament to the destructive power of unchecked ambition and betrayal. The story of Daniel Harper's murder and the trial of Victoria Harper left an indelible mark on Sterling Heights, a community once defined by its tranquility and affluence. Beneath the polished veneer of suburban life, this case revealed the devastating consequences of unchecked ambition, betrayal, and obsession. What began as a story of a successful entrepreneur, a loyal business partner, and a seemingly devoted wife unraveled into a chilling tale of premeditation and manipulation. Victoria Harper, once admired for her poise and grace, now faced a life sentence, her carefully curated image shattered forever, Her actions not only ended her husband's life but also destroyed her own, leaving behind a legacy of deceit and tragedy. The journal entries, financial schemes, and damning audio recordings served as stark evidence of how far she was willing to go to secure control over her life and fortune. Richard Lawson, though cleared of criminal charges, emerged from the case as a broken man. His professional reputation was ruined, his personal life in shambles. Harper Lawson Innovations, the company he and Daniel had built from the ground up, became collateral damage in the wake of the scandal. For Richard, the trial was not just a legal battle but a reckoning with his own choices and complicity in the chain of events that led to Daniel's death. For Daniel Harper's family, the verdict provided a sense of justice but little solace. The loss of a beloved father, husband, and son was a wound that no court ruling could heal. As the trial ended, they were left to rebuild their lives, haunted by the memory of what had been taken from them. The Harper case became a cautionary tale for the Sterling Heights community, a reminder that even the most idyllic neighborhoods could harbor dark secrets. It was a story that forced residents to confront uncomfortable truths about the fragility of trust and the dangers of unchecked ambition. As the story concludes, it leaves us with lingering questions. What drives a person to betray those closest to them? How do ambition and obsession spiral into tragedy? And perhaps most unsettling of all, how many other lives, seemingly perfect on the surface, hide similarly dangerous cracks beneath their facades? The Harper case may have ended in the courtroom, but its impact will endure as a chilling reminder of how quickly lives can unravel when deceit and betrayal take root. For viewers, the case serves as a stark warning. Sometimes the greatest threats come not from strangers, but from those we trust the most.